Michael, morning. This grant has been extended more than once, as we know. What has been the actual cost of that?
Yeah, it has come at a big cost, Uveka, but at the same time, you've got to ask what would be the cost of not paying the grant. Someone said to me, this is becoming like a monopoly money that we're handing out to South Africans. But those who support the grant will say, yes, it is like monopoly, and that's because we have an economy which is like a monopoly. The wealth is concentrated in very few hands, and that's one of the reasons why we need these grants, because so many people are struggling at this time. Let's focus on a few of the so-called home truths that this COVID crisis has taught us. And we'll look at the timeline, first of all, Uveka, in terms of the grant. We know that it came into effect in May last year, 350 Rand to people who were not getting an income and were not relying on any other form of grant, essentially. That was put in place for 6 months or so, and it came to an end in October last year. It was then extended, Uveka, for another 3 months, as you can see right there, taking us to the end of January. And then the President, in his State of the Nation address, saying that he would extend it to the end of April. So, of course, that grant coming to an end this month. The Social Development Minister, Lindiwe Zulu, told us earlier this year that it would cost roughly 22 billion Rand over the course of that period. So that's what it's cost to extend this grant to South Africans. I mentioned the idea of a monopoly and wealth being concentrated in very few hands. Let's focus on that very quickly. And what you'll see here is the average household income divided by the members of that household. So household income per capita, Uveka. And we're going to look at the poorest 10%, and we're going to work our way up to the richest 10% and give you a sense of what the average household member has to survive on. So there we go, the poorest 10%, household member in that household having to survive on 352 Rand. We work our way up, 602 Rand, 800 Rand, 1,100 Rand, and so on and so forth. Remember, this is just for an average household member in these homes. If we look at group number 8, Uveka, we're talking about 4,100 Rand per person that have to survive on that for a month. Then 7,461 in group 9, and then we get to group 10. In other words, the richest 10% of households, and they're surviving on 25,000 Rand each. So you can see the massive disparity here in terms of the richest 10% and the poorest 10%. And that's one of the reasons why this grant is so important for so many people.
All right, so breaking it down from those groups, Michael, let's put these numbers in context. What does it actually mean for the average South African?
Okay, so I mentioned the different groups.
Yeah.
We're going to focus on Group 7 as we bring that up, Uveka. Group 7 earning around about 2,700 Rand per member of the household. That is nearly 1,000 Rand less than the national minimum wage. The national minimum wage is roughly 3,800 Rand per month. So the average person in that group, Uveka, is having to survive on 1,000 Rand less. So just to put it in another way, if you take 10 households in South Africa, as we did a little bit earlier, that means that just 3 of those 10 households are surviving above the national minimum wage per person in that household. Just 3 out of 10, which of course deeply concerning.
All right, so as you said, this grant was crucial. Let's dig a little bit deeper. Now we're hearing calls for a basic income grant. How would something like that actually work?
Yeah, so that is a basic income grant, essentially a universal income grant that would be given to people to help them, just to make sure that they are surviving, and then of course they can go out and look for jobs and so on and so forth. It's known as the BIG, and it's important. At the same time, it would come at a BIG cost, a big cost. Let's focus on that very quickly. The President's economic advisors, Uveka, actually came out with these stats, trying to calculate what the BIG would cost. If it was extended to all adult South Africans, we're talking about 243 billion Rand per year. And just to put that in context, that is 122% of the entire budget of the Social Development Department. That's just for the universal grant. So it's a massive amount of money, and South Africa would have to find a way to pay for that. If you streamlined the grant and you just gave it to unemployed people, then it would cost 45 billion rand. And again, we put that in perspective, that's about 23% of the Social Development Department's entire budget. So many people would say a universal grant is perhaps a step too far, but certainly a jobless BIG, a basic income grant, would be a lot cheaper, Uveka, and certainly would help those people who are struggling to enter the world of work.
Let's hope the lessons learned will be carried forward from this, Michael,
Yeah.
and that can be successfully done. Thanks very much, Michael Marilia, breaking it down for